Hello, everyone. My name is Annie. I'm from Hology Interactive. Today, me and my co-founder, Adam Ringhede, will be talking about Level Up, why TypeScript and JavaScript for game development. A little bit more about us. We started the game engine development with web technologies around 2 years ago. And Adam Ringhede is a senior software engineer and also product owners with experiences from Metri, startup in Sweden, and also from Spotify. And me, Annie, I am doing public relations, UX designer research, and project management right now in Hology Interactive. When we're talking about games made with web technologies, for example, HTML5, JavaScript, and TypeScript, there are several game types that you will see. For example, it's most suitable for web and mobile games. The game genres mostly related to puzzle games, cozy games, hyper casuals, FPS, and racing games. But who knows in the future what other types of games you will be able to make with TypeScript and JavaScript since the technology is getting better. Now, when we're talking about web and mobile games, a lot of the people are still thinking about maybe a decade ago, you're playing Flash games on the website and trying to hide the browser from your parents. But today, it's actually evolving. There is upcoming huge numbers of web and mobile game platforms that are forming and they're reaching out to audiences around the globe. For example, Poki, they have very high monthly player numbers and they're reaching out to players from over 100 different countries. And there's also platforms like Crazy Games who are pushing the boundaries of the web and mobile game platforms. This year, they actually published an FPS game on their platform. There are benefits for making games with web technologies, especially on the part of the mobile and instant games areas. For example, traditionally, when game studios are making games, they're thinking about PC games and also console games. But there's a lot of players who are on mobile and also on social media platforms online. And so your game, when you're making your games for those kind of platforms, you're reaching out to a whole new audience out there around the world. And for example, Discord activities. Now you can reach out to people who are already on Discord and try to publish your games there. That's a whole new area that the traditional game development studios probably are still in the process of researching and exploring the possibilities. And also, games made with web technologies are actually going into kind of like a new era. For example, the cloud gaming services are projected to reach around $25 billion for the market size by 2027. And you can also starting to make games where when people are streaming, there's an overlay where audiences can play games in the chats. That's a whole new level of interactions when it comes to entertainment. You can also go into education, marketing, and rapid prototyping with web technologies in game development. The benefit of developing web and mobile games is about accessible platforms. Platforms that many people can access without technological and financial constraints. For example, if imagine if you can play FPS or RPG, the best kind of games that you've been dreaming about, but they're mostly on consoles and PC, but now you can play on web browsers. And what it does is it eliminates the installation barriers because you're starting to notice why are most of the games nowadays they require so much space in your computers and then they expect you to buy expensive graphic cards in order to play the games. And also, it also removed the need to have to buy extra toolings and equipments to play the games. It is also very versatile because when you're using web technologies to make interactive environment, It could be games, it could be educational, but it could be just another 3D experience on the web. And also, you're more likely to be able to access the 3D experiences and games anywhere as long as you have internet available.
If you look at the landscape of web technologies for gaming, we've had WebGL for a long time now, and WebGL 2 is supported in most big browsers for the last few years as well. And on top of that, we have WebGPU now, which is also supported in all major browsers. WebGL enables you to take advantage of the GPU to create very high performance graphics. While they may not be at the same level as other native applications, you can get pretty close. And I think that the capabilities of them have not been taken advantage of to their fullest. And then we have WebGPU, which gets even closer to native capabilities for 3D rendering as well as parallelized compute on the GPUs, which can be used in games as well. So why would you use JavaScript or TypeScript for game development? Starting with JavaScript itself, can aid rapid development very well. You don't have any long compile times, so you can quickly see what your changes to your code is doing. It's good for smaller projects as well. It's quick to get started with, and it's good for prototyping. You can very quickly share what you've created as a website or upload it to platforms like Itch to share it with people to test what you've created. And it can be used in more applications as well, so it's very much a general purpose language nowadays. And then we have TypeScript, which just makes JavaScript better in certain ways. It's better for larger scale applications because having the typing makes it easier to understand code bases, and it can also improve your code quality and maintainability as a bit like self-documenting on its own. And it also provides type safety, which can be good for reliability to ensure you're using correct types, especially if you're working with libraries. So you're less reliant on external documentation. So if we were to compare this to what's traditionally used in game development, like C++ and C#, well, we have static typing, so you have that in similar ways as C# and C++, and it has similar compile time safety for types if you're using types strictly. So how strict you want your types is configurable. So you can have very strict type checking, and you can have more relaxed type checking as well, depending on what you prefer. And this really bridges the gap between the dynamic nature of JavaScript and these more statically type checked languages. So you can get the best of both. And yeah, you can catch a lot of type related errors and just make your code more reliable. So one thing it can help with a lot is hot reloading. Because it is a scripting language, it doesn't need to be compiled, and you can easily run it from within an existing application without having to recompile the entire application itself. So this can then be used like we're using it in our game engine in its editor. So it can monitor the code and transpile the code as soon as it notices changes and execute that code. And all of this happens within a couple of 100 milliseconds. And this just helps you see the changes of your code, which can be very helpful when learning or when you're prototyping or experimenting. So you get that quick feedback. So one of the selling points for something like JavaScript for game development is that it has a great ecosystem and has a great open source culture as well, which makes it easier to collaborate with others and to leverage existing functionality. And this is a bit different in traditional game development. While there is open source there as well, it is more common to have proprietary technologies and ecosystems. Many game engines, they come with their own programming languages in some cases, and they have their own version control systems. They have proprietary file formats that are very difficult to version control or understand or integrate with other tooling. And they often come with this big set of tools that you have to learn that doesn't translate to anything else. So what you then have with JavaScript, you have npm, which has millions of packages, and you have a growing number of tools and frameworks that can aid you, that also can be applied to other things outside of game development. One topic that often comes up in game development, though, is performance. And JavaScript is highly performant, more performant than most people often believe it is. You can write TypeScript or JavaScript in a way similar to C that can allow you to get very high performance, especially when you're using like typed array buffers. The just-in-time compilation can optimize it very well. But if you want to have even better performance, you also have WebAssembly, which sometimes runs just as fast as JavaScript, but sometimes even faster, depending on what you're doing. And it can be used for certain optimizations where you need it. If you're building a physics engine or some other library for simulation in your game, you often don't have to touch WebAssembly, but you have that option. It just allows you to write code in different languages like C++ or C#, or even assembly script, which is the superset of TypeScript itself, which can then compile to WebAssembly and you can run it. And one thing it also enables is to integrate other libraries that you otherwise use in game development, like pathfinding libraries or physics libraries. So you can get sort of the functionality and the quality of these libraries that are already used in other like AAA game engines.
Thank you for attending our session today. And if you want to learn more about web game development and also interested in our game engine, Cohology engine made with web technologies, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or check out our website. I have included the QR code here